Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Combat Sports UK podcast. We are here today to review UFC 307, which went down in Salt Lake City just at the weekend there. It was a Potan fight week and he delivered as always. I am delighted today to be joined by Jon, who's tuning in from Canada as usual. How's things, Jon?
Good. How about you guys?
Yeah, all good, thank you. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Dan Evans. How are you, Dan?
I'm good. You yourself?
All good. Glad to be here. Looking forward to getting stuck in a decent night of fights. I think me and Dan was just saying there that we weren't overly impressed. Jon was more impressed by the night of fights than us. So we'll kick off with the main event. Alex Potan Pereira. This was a really interesting one. Definitely his hardest fight by far. Of course, the one apart from the one he got beat by Israel Adesanya. Outside that, it was his hardest fight. I didn't give Rountree nowhere near as much of a chance as what maybe you guys did. And I think he's turned out right because he was a formidable opponent for sure. I picked Alex Pereira to knock him out in the second round, and it took him a lot more than that. The fight kind of started, and round one, Rountree looked very fast and explosive. Round two, the same. And then going into round three, you could just tell Potan could smell blood. But we'll kick off talking about Rountree. What did you think of his performance on Saturday, Jon?
I think he did better than we all expected. That's for sure. I think we all had a unanimous second round knockout for Pereira. Took him 2 more rounds. And I had Rountree up 2-0 going after the second round. I think he did. He was the one advancing. He landed the more cleaner and more strikes than Pereira. Pereira was more backing up and more tentative. And then after round 2, I think there was I don't know if you count as a knockdown. He kind of buckled Pereira. He went down to like almost a knee, picked himself up right at the end of the round. But then that's when Rountree's downfall started going because he was exhausted in the corner. It seemed like he kind of threw almost his best shots there. However, just like the commentator said, I didn't see the leg kicks from Rountree. His best weapon is the leg kicks to the thighs, to the calf, and all that. I think I saw one in round 3 was the first one, and he was mostly headhunting. And Pereira locked in round 4. We'll talk about that later. But Rountree looked great. I think he looked better than Jamal Hill. He looked better than Yuri twice. He looked better than Bruno Silva. He definitely looked better than Macialis he did in his first fight. And probably better than Blachowicz too, because Blachowicz took him right down in their fight in 10 seconds into the first round, right? So not a lot of people gave a chance to Rountree. They were kind of right, but I don't think anybody gave a chance to Rountree to get it to round 4 and taking 2 rounds, because he was up 2 rounds, and let's say survive round 4, it'd have been 2-2 going to the 5th round.
I would agree with your scoring, and the judges had it 2 up going in the 3rd as well from Rountree, which was very, very surprising to me. But he started really well. I was shocked I knew he had that explosive power, but I was shocked just at how fast he looked. And the interesting thing was his feet was as quick as his hands. Alex Pereira is very good at doing this thing where he uses his long arms to free him and get out of range, and we've seen him doing it better in the 4th round. But he was trying to do that in the first 2 rounds as well. But Rountree's feet was just too quick, and he was able to create them angles and catch Pereira. What was your thoughts on Rountree, Dan? Were you surprised by his performance?
So, like I said, like you two, I both thought that Rountree, he had a chance, but I don't think he was going to be as successful as he was. I think those first 2 rounds from Rountree were excellent, to be honest. I think it was really whether he took Pereira by surprise or whether it was Pereira's sort of downloaded, which you hear a lot of, whether he was taking his time with it. But I think Rountree came out of the box really sort of 100 miles an hour, and I really liked that he did catch him in that second round. Sort of a knockdown, sort of a slip. But I think Rountree was really, really impressed those first 2 rounds. Like I said, he leaded in the 3rd and the 4th. Eventually, obviously, got him out of there. But I think, like Jon said, he did better than Hill. He did much better than Prohashka. And it's definitely a performance he could be proud of 100%. And I think this doesn't lower at all. If anything, it raises it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes up in the rankings, when they do come out later on this week because of that performance and how competitive the fight was. Like you said, it's definitely the hardest fight since his Adesanya fight. So I think he's a really, really great performance, Rountree, even though he did suffer defeat in the end.
I think it's always very obvious that we've watched a banging fight whenever, as you mentioned there, even the loser stock goes up. And that is the case in this scenario because, yes, Pereira was put in trouble, but it still makes his stock rise because we've seen Pereira face a real tough challenge there. He had to go down to the deepest, darkest waters, and he still managed to pull through. What a guy he is. Jon, what do you have to say about this man? Like he's running through everyone in the division. In my opinion, he's the pound for pound number one. We can have that debate after, but in my opinion, he is at the moment, and I don't think anyone actually comes close to him because he is running through guys. In there, he had a very formidable opponent against Rountree, an opponent that gave his all, and Pereira had to slowly break him down. What was your thoughts on Potan's performance?
Shama.
Jama, that's all we have to say.
That was incredible, right? Pereira was down 0-2. I don't know. Do you boys agree he was down 0-2 after watching it?
Yeah,
I agree. Big time, yeah.
I didn't see the judges' scorecard either, but I feel like majority of us would have it 0-2. And
it was that on the judges' scorecard.
Sorry?
It was. The judges did have Rountree 2 up going into the third. I seen that on Twitter earlier.
Majority was saw he was up 0-2. Pereira started slow and then just locked in round 4. I see people comparing it. I don't really want to compare it like that, but to Conor and Alvarez, when Conor was slipping shots and countering in round 4, Pereira did the same thing. Pereira's a slow starter. Not like he takes the whole round. He takes probably a minute off the first round. And you can see in every fight against Hill. Hill was going forward until the nut shot. Against Izzy and against Yuri Prohaska, the first fight, and the second fight was way more confident. He knew. And the guy's incredible. I liked a Joe Rogan comment when he was in the octagon and he was talking to Mark Goddard, and he said in 20 years of reffing, he hasn't heard someone punch as hard as that. And we had killers in the octagon with let's say I'm blanking right now. Crap. On some people who hit hard.
Like
Derek Lewis
and that sort of thing, yeah.
Yoel Romero, people said when you hit him, it was like hitting a cement brick, right? So, Pereira is just on another level right now. He keeps getting better, and the thought is he's 36, 37. It's scary. He wants to move down. He wants to move up. He wants to defend at light heavyweight. This guy's incredible right now. What a run he has. Pereira, was it his best performance? I think it was one of his best rounds. Round 4 was definitely his best round I've ever seen him in. Was his best performance? Maybe not. Against, Hill was pretty great. One shot took him out. Yuri Prohaska also, in the second fight, he gave him nothing. So Yuri kept going forward, and he was the one kept getting rocked. But Pereira, started slow. It could have been because of he said he was on antibiotics. He did seem like he was a bit sick. I didn't want to say anything, but in the vlogs, it did seem like his voice sounded like he was getting over a cold, perhaps, something like that. And then you saw him coughing and blowing his nose out in the corner. Makes sense. But, against Yuri, he fought with a broken toe or something like that. 2 broken toes, and he knocked him out with a head kick. So nothing will stop this guy. Nothing will stop him. The powerhouse he is incredible. He's definitely the biggest star in UFC right now. I think people who are my friends who don't watch UFC tuned in yesterday to watch Pereira because they know a knockout is going to come or something incredible will happen. And I think, that round 4 was he was in another level. He slipped shots, backed in, body, head, knee, and then at the end, it was too much for Rountree Jr. So I think Pereira just another level, and I don't see anyone beating him anytime soon.
You think this was his best performance, Dan? It was certainly a performance where we had to see, it's probably the deepest we've had to see him go in terms of he did have to work for that. Against Prohaska and Jamal Hill, it was all a bit too easy for him most of the time, whereas that there on Saturday, like fair play to Khalid Rountree because he really did have to bring out the dog and Alex Pereira. Would you say it was his best performance yet, Dan?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's one of those performances where seen against Hill and Prohaska, it's been, you know, that first minute knockout, you know, it's very flash. There's no guts, there's no heart. It's not a war he's gone through, and he's never really had to do that in his UFC career to date, apart from possibly the first Adesanya fight where he wins that late. But that wasn't a war like this. It was one where he is getting dropped. And Round someone who hits harder than Adesanya, like I said, his strike is not probably as crisp, but that weight is in those shots, and you are getting clipped by it. So I definitely think it's definitely that performance where he can look at himself and think, I went deep there, and I came back through the fire. And I think, to be honest, that further strengthens his grip on that crown at light heavyweight. Magomed Ankalaev isn't. And in my opinion, I don't think he can cause those problems for him in the striking range that Rountree has. I think Pereira might take it. Like you said, he come out after antibiotics. He did sound a bit like something was off in fight week. I don't expect anything really to trouble him. When it comes to Ankalaev, you are then looking at your threat of the wrestling. But again, I think he can deal with that, and I think that's not going to be a test like this was for him. I do agree this was a really sort of a crowning moment for him. All of his other fights, like I said, quick knockouts. You can always tie in how good is over the distance really when the going gets tough, and it did get tough when he came through it in flying colours. So I think it's a crowning moment for him. Definitely one of his best performances today.
Another key takeaway point I kind of noticed is that we don't really see Pereira in the latter rounds or in the championship rounds too often. Another time we did was his first fight in the UFC with Adesanya. And it was quite a similar scenario where he was actually down on the scorecards. Adesanya was up on the scorecards. And I listened to Adesanya and Joe Rogan on the JRE podcast just earlier, actually. And Adesanya was talking about how he was up on the scorecards, but it came into the fifth round and his leg was absolutely beat up and how much that slowed him down. And I think that's something that we will see from Pereira because we've seen it against Rountree as well. Yes, Rountree's gas tank was done, but he slowed down big time because it looked like Pereira wasn't really doing a massive amount in the first two rounds, but what he was doing was beating away at that lead leg. Is there anyone out there at the minute, John, that's got better leg kicks than Alex Pereira?
Jose Aldo? But at the moment, I don't really know who has better leg kicks. I mean, I was gonna say Rountree. I was gonna say actually Rountree before this fight. Like that was his main weapon, especially when he came back and fought Eric Anders. The leg kicks were incredible. He had the Muay Thai stance. Here, it seemed like he was a southpaw, and it was gonna be a big of a reach for his leg kicks to reach Pereira's legs, and then want to put himself in a vulnerable position. But Pereira has the best probably leg kicks right now. He's the best leg kicks, best strikers, best fighter right now in the moment. Best everything.
And the fact that we've seen him do it, obviously, we've seen him beat the lead leg off orthodoxes before, but the fact he was able to switch it up against Rountree, a southpaw, and still chop away at that lead leg, it was unbelievable. What's next for these guys, Dan? Who do you think Potan and Rountree should fight next? Let's throw a few names out there.
I think for Pereira, I think, like you said, he's taken a bit of time off, which, you know, it's deserved. What's that? Three fences in 175 days or something like that. Yeah. So, like I said, 7 months. So I think well deserved time off for him. I think you can easily see him headlining International Fight Week next year. Like it's a lengthy layoff like that. If not, sometime in the early summer, late spring, we can see him come back. And I'm thinking, like I said, this Ankalaev Rakic fight next week, unfortunately, I think Ankalaev might win, and I think it has to be Ankalaev next. I think he did the right thing where he said, look, he's still got work to do at light heavyweight. I don't think it's much work. I think it is Ankalaev. And if he does beat Ankalaev, it has to be a move to heavyweight. Now that is the end of 25.
What happens if Rakic beats Ankalaev? Do you think he gets the shot next, or?
Well, this is the thing. It's a odd space of divisions in at the moment. I think could even look further down, and you look where Rountree's come from now at number 8. You look at someone like Volkan Oezdemir, and you think, well, he's street at the moment. I mean, he could easily get a shot, but if Rakic does come in and beat Ankalaev, I personally, I think Ankalaev will step up, and I think he will put in a displays. This is, I mean, he's had this moment before, and he's fluffed his lines, so you never know. But I think this is a moment for Ankalaev to really show that he does deserve the shot. And like I said, he is streaking. I mean, there's no one else. I think it has to be Ankalaev next for Pereira. For Rountree, I mean, Jamal Hill yawning in the crowd, I think that warrants that was a beating for him. So I think that's March next year, and I think Rountree can really put manners on Jamal Hill, because Rountree performed far better than Hill did, much better than him. So I think that yawning was a bit cheeky, but I think Pereira put that to bed in the post-fight press conference.
Just to clarify what he said in the post-fight press conference, he says maybe Jamal Hill's just waking up from UFC 300 and that's why he's yawning. Unreal banter from Alex Pereira. What's your thoughts, John? What should Potan and what should Rountree do next?
And just go in the comment. We don't hear Pereira talk shit like that a lot, eh? Yeah, that's kind of it was a fire line to say that, and I think he had the last word, right? So Jamal Hill is yawning, and he's now going to respond on Twitter or on his YouTube channel. In terms for Pereira, his next fight depends what happens on Ankalaev and Rakic for sure. If Ankalaev, if he wins, he's probably 99% the next opponent for Pereira. However, Pereira keeps saying he wants to take time off, but his time off is like a weekend, right? He's gonna take a weekend, and I do feel like I could see Pereira coming back in December for UFC 310. I think we're gonna stack up the card. We have Paredes versus Randy Brown. There's already some stack fights there, and I think we might see Pereira fight there, and depends on what Ankalaev wants to do. And Ankalaev and the Dagestani people, they love doing a proper weight cut and taking 6 months off between their fights. So luckily December is in 5 months, so maybe Ankalaev would be ready to fight, especially he's fighting in a week, 2 weeks now. If not, throw in Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill's been talking all this crap. He has a lot to overcome. Showed that the nut shot was like an accident, and he actually did take advantage of the stoppage to come taking a step closer and knocking him out. Storm that, I think it's still going to be a good fight. Then Hill. My question is, what we do with Jan Blachowicz? I feel like Jan Blachowicz has a split. He's the closest kind of having a win over Pereira with a split decision loss. If they throw him in before Ankalaev or Jamal Hill, I wouldn't be surprised either. And for Rountree Jr., he has to recover first. I think he took a lot of beating. His eyes shut. He has a scar on his face. He had a lot of blood coming out. His legs probably beat up too. So take a lot of time off. And I could see him fighting right back in the top 5. Like if Hill is not fighting, I could see him rescheduling that fight. It was supposed to be a few months ago for International Fight Week. You can throw him against a Rakic if he loses. If Rakic loses, I could see that fight. Even Yuri Prohaska, maybe. Like I feel like that'll be still a fire fight as a co-main for somewhere on the main card of a pay-per-view. But everybody's just looking up. Rountree didn't lose stock. Pereira gained stock. They're all gonna be fighting the top echelon of the light heavy division before Pereira eventually moves down or moves up.
Some big fights there to be had. I think especially for Rountree, because a lot of Pereira's are rematches outside of Ankalaev, and as you both alluded to, we have to wait and see what happens with the Rakic fight. But I think for Rountree, there's some smashing fights there, as you mentioned. You have Prohaska, Hill, even Blachowicz. It's a strange one stylistically, but there is some really good fights there. I think the thing that you did disagree on there is how long Alex Pereira is going to take out. John, you think he'll be back in December, and Dan, you think it might be next summer or next. There's no way he's waiting the next International Fight Week. I actually really hope he don't, because if he is to wait that long, the UFC will have to try and find more pay-per-view stars, because Alex Pereira, he done 300, he seemed at 303 and 306. What are they going to do if he doesn't fight for a year or even 9 months? You kind of struggle to see where the pay-per-view stars are.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. I think maybe. All right, we'll bring him back in March then. And then the actual fight
Way too
week,
long.
that could be Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes, after Kayla Harrison takes the belt that is rightfully hers from Pena, who was just sneakily won the belt. It's one of those split issues. But no, I think all right, we'll say Pereira. You can have 4 or 5 months off, but that's it. No longer than that. March at the latest.
I'm glad you agree. No longer than 4 or 5 months. Potan can definitely not stay away for any longer than that. You touched on it, and that leads us on nicely to the co-main event then. The bantamweight title fight between Raquel Pennington and Juliana Pena. As you said before this call, John, it was a fight that sort of we weren't expecting it to be as good as what it was. It wasn't a smashing fight, but we were kind of expecting a bit of a bore fest, and it certainly wasn't that. My assessment of it was, watching it live, it was a very close fight, but I thought Pennington actually won. I was surprised when they gave it to Pena. But when you look at the judges' scorecards and the way I had it, I think Pena definitely won the championship rounds 4 and 5. Or sorry, Pennington won 4 and 5, the championship rounds. I think Pena won 2 and 3. And round 1 was the one that was up for debate. Do you agree with that assessment, John?
Disagree. I had Pena 1, 2, and 3.
You had Pena 1, 2, and 3.
Pena 1, 2, and 3, and Pennington 4 and 5. That's no argument. Pennington 4 and 5. The takedown that Pena landed in round 2 and round 3. That was clearly Pena's round.
One was definitely the swing round.
Yeah, round 1. For me, round 1 was probably the most boring one. Nothing really happened. You look at it in terms of the judgment, how they judge a fight. Advancing is the number one rule. If nothing has happened, then I feel like Pena did most of the advancement. Pennington was kind of took a round off to see what Pena was going to do, and it looked like maybe a ring rust for both of them in a type of way. Pena hasn't fought in 2 years after that beating. Pennington hasn't fought since January, and she was taking care of her kids, so I don't know how much training she had. Obviously, she probably did train, but I feel like she started off a bit slow. So that's why round 4 and 5 was definitely hers. I made a bet with my buddy while we were watching it. We're like slowly like $10 head kick knockout in this fight just to make it interesting. And my goodness, twice it came close. And I was like, this might be the biggest shocker of the event.
If that did come in and you only won £10 off it, you would have been raging, because if you had done that through the bookies, you would have won a hell of a lot more.
Oh yeah.
And Pennington got her first knockdown in 19 fights, and you sounded quite surprised there, Dan, that she didn't get the win. Did you not agree with the split decision?
So I think I think this was me with. I picked Pennington before the fight, so I'm looking at the scorecards going, oh yeah, okay. But I completely agree. I think 1 is in round, 2 and 3, 4 and 5 are both easy to score, and I think I completely agree with what you said. 4 and 5, Pennington wins them quite easily, and like I said, 2 and 3 I think are definitely his rounds. So 1 is definitely a swing round. Again, I don't think it's anything. You can't scream robbery. You can't scream anything like that. It's one of those close fight, giving it to Pena. I think your main for Pennington is, I scored it for her 1, 4, and 5. Like I think most people did. If it did 2 and 3, I think everyone agrees is Pena rounds. If she ever did win, it would have been just 48-47. It's not like he's been robbed of a majority decision or something like that. So I think for Pennington, the issue is the no thirst for that rematch. So her getting back to title shot it looks a very long road now, because, like I said, Pena's trying to set the Nunes trilogy, which I don't think is going to happen. And then if Kayla Harrison's right, demanding the title shot, which I think she's going to get. But that's 2 fights. And then if Kayla Nunes is this almighty scrap that everyone wants it to be, that's probably going to have a second fight. And Pennington's looking, a year, 18 months, or she can even sniff a title shot. So I think that's your sort of unlucky Pennington, really. Like I said, it just off a split decision. She's out of a title picture now, like I said, 18 months to 2 years. So I think it was unlucky. Like I said, I scored it for Pennington. There's no issues with it. It's 3-2 to Pena, though. I think 1, 2, and 3 easily can be scored for Pena, just like 1, 4, and 5 could. For Pennington. So I think once you swing round, I had it for Pennington. But like I said, no issues for Pena winning the belt.
It wasn't a robbery,
fights.
right? Like, it was split decision. Nobody was going to say it's a robbery.
No.
There's still people online saying it's a robbery, but it's one of them ones. I think you're always going to get that with a tight fight. But if it's a tight fight, it can't be a robbery, in my opinion.
Exactly.
It comes down to 2 judges judging round 1. A round that there wasn't too much that happened, and 2 judges judging it different than one other, and that is what it came down to. I was listening to a podcast with Mark Goddard. He was on TalkSport, and he was discussing how there's 25 possible combinations of how the judges can give their rounds there, and there was one round different. So like 24 out of 25 was the same. So that just shows how close that fight was. But it was an interesting one. We're not going to touch on the division because we'll do a full circle once we discuss Kayla Harrison, and we'll do some matchmaking in the women's bantamweight division then. Moving on to the King of Rio, quite a disappointing one. It's a fight that's built up a lot of controversy, and I'm sure we'll get stuck into it now because it was an interesting one. Obviously, Batista gets the win on the judges' scorecards. Aldo defended, I think it was maybe 11 out of 11 takedowns, which we did say could happen. We said Batista was going to keep going for the takedowns and Aldo would defend him. But the problem was Aldo ended up on the fence so often, and he really struggled to reverse that position. And when he did reverse it, it was nearly too late. He had lost too much time on the fence. John, what was your verdict on this one? Do you think the judges got it right? Do you think the referee should have split them up more? Because yes, Batista was he was controlling the position, but he wasn't advancing it whatsoever.
He wasn't controlling anything. Is for me, how I view it, if somebody tries to take you down and the attempt is unsuccessful, like we see Bautista versus Aldo, and he kind of just stays there with his hands wrapped around your back and kind of just like, put some weight on you in a way. I see that as the same way as two strikers standing in the middle of the octagon, just holding your hands up and not doing anything. Maybe a feint or two. Like, best way to describe it is Romero versus Adesanya, when it was just feint, and nothing. I see that as the same situation. So I don't know if the judges' scorecard or judges' judgment, how they have to judge for a fight, has to change, because obviously the first thing you do is advancing. Technically, he hasn't advanced anymore. They're in a stalemate. It's a stalemate that you can't advance. You could only turn around and go back, right? That's the only advancement you do. You have to judge. Your criteria is also damage. There's no damage done whatsoever, and it just sucks. I feel like the judges, we just had a 12-6 elbow remove and then knee to the ground, or one knee on the or hand on the floor and one knee on the floor. It doesn't consider a ground an opponent. I think it's baby steps with the judgment and the rules. We're gonna see that in 2 weeks implement. So maybe it's gonna become more of a sport that we do agree on how the judging will be done eventually. I had this almost fight of the night for me because I think the boys were swinging for round 1 and 2. And then Aldo ate some shots, but threw it right back, and Bautista same thing. But when Bautista's like, okay, we think it's 1-1, just go for a takedown round 3, and don't do anything. I wish the referee, I don't remember who it was anymore now. I think it was the Viking. I think they had to separate him more. They had to separate them more. And like, if somebody, it's also weird when like somebody's attempts to take down, doesn't do anything, referee separates them, and then Bautista goes right back, try for a takedown, not successful, and still holds a position. I think you got to separate that once again, and maybe separate him farther from the octagon. Like, actually go back to your corner, or behind the black lines where behind the monster logo, and then like make them advance. Because then he's not gonna shoot a takedown. He's just gonna do the same thing. It's like a dog who sees a squirrel out the window. He's gonna go there and he's gonna look at him. He's gonna do the same thing. So it just sucks. I think Bautista lost a lot of respect for just trying to do that every time. Especially how you guys were fighting in round 1 and round 2. You know you can swing. Go out on your sword, man. Like, you're fighting a legend. You could take that legend away. And instead, now everyone's just shitting on you until your next fight.
And I think a real interesting thing was there he was getting booed in his own country, like seriously booed. I don't know if that was because he beat Aldo or because of the performance. I would say it was probably a mix of both. I think you touched on it there. The ref should have split them up more. If you look at UFC 306 in the Sphere, I kind of disagreed with how much Herb Dean was stepping in to encourage Mir Abdi to try and advance his position. But it's like night and day if you compare Saturdays in comparison to the main event in the Sphere. It was so different, and it was there's a complete lack of consistency there, in my opinion. What was your thoughts on this one, Dan? Do you think if it was taking the grappling out of it, do you think Aldo done enough on his feet to win the fight, just striking?
So I think I agree with you. Like I said, the stalling and stuff that everyone's listening at. You get to a point now is consistency. It depends what ref you get. That's what you don't want it to rely on. But now it sort of seems like it'd be that. Like I said, Herb Dean at the Sphere was very much work, and then is it Beltran is the supposed Viking? He's
with the big stashes where he hides it in the shirt.
Yeah. I'm sure that's Beltran. Yeah, if it is,
we just call him the Viking. Just
it's the easiest way. Yeah, no, I think, like I said, you don't want it to rely on which ref you get, because I saw it might be on a similar podcast we talked about Brett Locklane. Sometimes he would go into a dressing room and ask who the ref is, and if he just gets one that he said, that's off your whole fight, and you don't want it to be. You want to have a level of consistency when it comes to your officials, whether that's judges and refs. So I think I do agree with you. Like I said, with Aldo, it was disappointing. Like you expect more from it. This is Jose Aldo. This is your featherweight goat. This is exactly. I thought it just seemed like he was just lacking something. Whether that was he was surprised by, but it was like strategy. Whether it was very much he was just so drained from the stalling. But yeah, no, I think for Aldo, like I said, round I think was much better for him. I think that's the round that Aldo, if he takes any, that's the round he does take. But I think I can agree with Bautista winning, but it wasn't pretty, and it's not going to gain you any fans, as you can see. It's going to gain you, well, it's going to lose you fans.
Gain you a main event at the Apex. That's what's going to do.
I don't even know if we'll get a main event at the Apex. He might be co-main with that sort of.
He's going to be stuck at the Apex. That's what I could tell until he changes. I don't know if it's like kind of a punishment that Dana could do to but yeah, that's my thought.
I think they can just. I'm surprised, to be honest. So Song Yadong fought back in March, and I thought this Macau card. I thought this is a brilliant place for Song Yadong to knock out Mario Bautista, but I don't think that's going to happen because I think they've got their event. But I feel like they could, because of this type of performance, they could definitely not sort of stiff him with his next fight. But, was he on 6-fight win streak now? You'd be expected to be looking up the rankings. They might sort of hold his position. But to be honest, the top of the bantamweight rankings now is a bit stacked and it's a bit jammed up anyway, with Figueiredo, Yan fighting, Umar's getting his title shot. So I think for Bautista, he might be quite stagnant in his position, and they might have him fight someone like Cheeto or someone like Song Yadong, rather than big jump up next for him, I think, for him.
What's your thoughts, John? What do you do next with Bautista? Who does he headline against in the Apex?
I do like the Cheeto call. Cheeto might be interesting if you're looking up, but just like how Merab had to fight a lot of people in the division, if Mario Bautista wants to get a title shot, he definitely, if he keeps fighting like this, he will never get it for he's gonna have to fight literally rank number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 getting there. I mean, Bautista takes Jose Aldo's ranking number 10. You have Song Yadong. He has a fight booked. Cheeto's ranked 7, coming off 2 losses. That could be a smart fight. Cejudo, perhaps. I could see Aldo kind of jumping Bautista, giving Cejudo. Cejudo's ranked number 5, and that's how you get Aldo back in the top 5. Corey Sandhagen, he's coming off is it 2 losses or 1 loss now? 2 losses in a row?
Just
So you
one, I think.
1. So he lost against Umar.
Yeah,
and then he beat Font and Cheeto. Yeah. So definitely probably Corey if you want to get him like to prove his top 5. But
I think Corey Shaw's definitely the fight you got to make, and that's the fight people want to see. If Sean O'Malley and Corey Sandhagen, I think is a fight. If that's on the table, and Mario Bautista's on the table, there's only one way you go with that. Definitely.
For an easy win, you'd go with Bautista probably. Yeah. I don't know. They might want to kind of throw Sean O'Malley back with Merab because your point earlier, there is no stars. So who would you have as a star for a pay-per-view, right? You have Pereira, Jones, middleweight. You guys, Drakus, but then welterweight you have Bilal. I don't think people are gonna be eagerly excited to see that unless against Shafkat. I don't think people will be excited with him and Usman. Probably just like root against him. Lightweight is Islam, so you kind of will know how the outcome will end up. Featherweight, you have Topuria and Max, so you really need something to happen there. Bantamweight's Merab. You're not going to throw in Merab at a main event of a pay-per-view unless it's against O'Malley. Even against Umar, you will know exactly how the fight's going to go, and you're going to stuck him in the co-main event. So, and flyweight's very rarely a main event of pay-per-view. So, I think O'Malley might have a chance here to get a rematch with Merab, but O'Malley's off the table for Bautista anyways, and for Aldo. But Aldo's looking at maybe a Rob Font for Bautista, Straya boxing versus wrestler matchup. And I really want to see Aldo or Cejudo. I think that will be, so Aldo can defend a takedown. We can Cejudo slow down a little bit. So that'll be what I would do next.
What was your thoughts on Aldo's performance, John? Did you feel it like the same as myself and Dan? Did you think it was a bit lackluster?
Well, it's obviously not Aldo for like 10 years ago when he was featherweight champion and going crazy, but he still has it. He went blow for blow Batista. Like I said, I had it just kind of like fight a night, 50K bonus for me if they kept going how he went round 1, round 2, because there was no really takedowns attempted. There was takedowns attempted, but stuffed, and then right back on the feet. And Aldo was swinging. He was swinging to finish the guy, and I think that's what you want to see in your fighters. You want to see people who are trying to finish the fight and not get out wrestled, and he did that. I think it was classic post featherweight belt for Aldo performance, and I think he could slowly get a climb back to the top of the rankings. That's for sure. I don't think he lost any stock. I think people mostly just hate Bautista now, but he fought. He looked like solid post featherweight champion Aldo.
He did. I think if he threw leg kicks, as I mentioned before, he literally didn't throw any leg kicks, which I was shocked at because he's got one of the best in the game. Moving on to Kevin Holland against the Lidze, which was.
Can I just throw a matchup for Jose Aldo?
Let's hear it.
Like I said, Cejudo makes sense, but he's a wrestler. No one wants to see Jose Aldo fighting wrestlers. Come on, let's do something nice. Everyone says Dominic Cruz.
Cejudo fights like a karate guy, right? He just has this wrestling ability behind him, but he fights a karate guy, right? So he's not like gonna go for a takedown.
Yeah, well, they're more stand up against Cejudo than Bautista. Yeah, no, I can agree with that definitely. But yeah, everyone says Dominic Cruz. I don't think we'll see Dominic Cruz fight again. Why do we not do Cody Garbrandt against Jose Aldo?
Nice, yeah.
Like, come on. No one loses in that. There's no takedowns. There's no threats of a takedown. I know Cody Garbrandt, he's fighting. Is it Miles Johns or something like that in November? Let's just knock out Miles Johns in the first round, Cody. Come on, and then next year in a main card that is gonna kick a main card off amazingly. So yeah, Jose Aldo, Cody Garbrandt. Let's do that. So
I
who
do
does
also-
stay retired?
Might have been a West War Room. Good shout. Good shout. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's amazing. I haven't thought about Cody, but that's amazing. I just think so all those looking for the title, but it would be a fun fight for the fans. I also want to say if this fight was in Brazil yesterday or on Saturday, if this fight was in Brazil, he would have definitely gotten the judges' scorecard.
And I think it's kind of similar to as Dan mentioned about Pennington. She's a split decision, and her outlook looks completely different. It's the same as Aldo. If Aldo had a split decision win there, he's looking up in the rankings, and that title run looks half likely. Whereas now it just seems that little bit further away because of one judge's scorecards. But that's the joys of the sports. That's why we love it. That's why there's so much on the line in every fight. Moving on to a bit of a strange one then. Kevin Holland against Roman Dolidze. This didn't really play out how any of us wanted. Of course, Kevin Holland's rib seemed to pop out. I don't know if his rib broke or popped out. I don't know what the crack was with it. Conor McGregor's calling him a bitch online. Don't know what you think of that. What was your thoughts on that fight while it lasted, John?
Well, if Connor called him a bitch, why didn't he fight him with his broken pinky toe, right? So let's not go there. Connor just all for show, get the tweets going and get his mentions on Twitter. Very disappointing. I think it kind of went the way we thought it was gonna go. Round one, it was striking, and then Dolidze had to go for a takedown when Holland was getting the upper advantages on the striking. So it's just very unfortunate. I was actually looking forward to this fight. I was gonna be excited when they get back on their feet in round two and see how it goes. And will Dolidze attempt another takedown really quickly or wait for the end of the round again? Because I had Holland winning until the takedown, and it wasn't much damage from Dolidze going in on the takedown and when he had a top position. And I do like how Holland tried to do, he's a black belt jiu-jitsu as well, so he tried to finish him there, try to do an armbar, and unfortunately that was the rib injury. Not much to say, just very unfortunate. Good for Dolidze for winning, I guess, if you count him winning in the second half of the first round and ultimately securing it. I don't know who I will give him next for Dolidze. I just want to see Holland kind of be serious about fighting. I think he's a great welterweight. I think if he takes himself seriously, trains properly and eats properly, because I heard he doesn't. That's why he's staying at middleweight. He likes taking the short notice fights. Sure, that's fine. That's good. But I want to be serious. Like, he was ranked at welterweight until he got to JDM, and losing JDM is no sham. Like, JDM is top division. I could see him as a future champion. He's top 5 definitely. But I feel like Holland could definitely get a run at welterweight if he keeps his weight on track, trains properly, eats properly. I feel like welterweight's his division. I think middleweight, Dolidze will never make welterweight, right? But he can make light heavyweight. Holland can make welterweight, and he showed it to us. So I think that's where he needs to stay. I think he's taking himself seriously. I think he made a lot of money now. I think you want to go for glory. I think we got to see a little bit of change from Kevin Holland and his fight regimen.
I did sort of mention before that Dolidze has fought at light heavyweight, as you say. Holland has fought at welterweight. I did think it was going to be a size discrepancy, and even though Holland was taller, Dolidze looks so much fuller than him. Like, his bone density looked twice as big as what Kevin Holland did. It was a very, very unfortunate way for it to go. I'm going to throw a fight out there for Roman Dolidze. He says he wants to fight in December again. He didn't take much damage, if any. I think Brendan Allen. What's your thoughts on that one, Dan? And who would you throw out there as well?
I think Brendan Allen is a good fight for him. I think it might be a little bit more than he deserves. Like I said, I don't know tomorrow if he will be in the rankings at middleweight. Is he ranked at light heavyweight or is he ranked at middleweight? I'm not sure with Dolidze because I feel like he's
Dolidze is ranked number 10 at middleweight, and I believe at 15 at light heavyweight.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think Brendan Allen, is a great matchup for him.
Perfect matchup.
I think it's, like I said, Brendan Allen, difficult fight last time out against Imavov. Dolidze lost narrowly, I think it was, wasn't it, to a mother, or was it more dominant from what I remember? I think it was quite a tight fight. So I think Allen's good litmus test to see how much he's developed since then. Another fight I like just because it's Paulo Costa. Everyone wants to see Paulo Costa fight. I think he's he is entertainment personified, and I reckon Paulo Costa, he just means big power wherever he goes. So I think Paulo Costa's another name, but it's no one knows if Paulo Costa's on the secret juice or on the stakes. No one knows what he's doing nowadays. So we'll see what Paulo Costa's up to. But yeah, no, I like Brendan Allen, and that's one I could see them making. Again, Paulo Costa's sort of a dream matchup if he appears from Brazil at some point.
Costa's definitely a good one. Is there any names you want to throw in there that we haven't mentioned, John?
I think Costa, that's a great fight. I think the two big boys, Costa is on a 2-fight losing streak. He likes taking time off between fights. He hasn't fought since UFC 304. I feel like end of the year card might work out for Costa. I think people actually like that. I think it'll be a fun fight. We don't see Costa get taken down a lot, have we, right? I remember him getting taken down except against Luke Rockhold. And then that's when Rockhold like splattered his blood everywhere on him. But I think
that was a weird one.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good matchup. I think so. Leeds is ranked 10, Costa's 9, Allen's 8, Cannonier's 7, Vittori, where the hell he is. So there's a lot of fights we can do. There's a lot of fights we can do with the Elite. I think you got to stick to one weight class, be a weight bully, make middleweight, and Cannonier's coming off 2 losses in a row now. Costa's coming off 2 losses in a row. There's hope for the Elite, especially with his terrible performance against Imanov, and maybe a rematch with Vittori.
Yeah, a rematch with Vittori looks good as well. So moving on then to the main card opener, we've got Kayla Harrison taking on Caitlin Pereira. I wasn't blown away by Kayla Harrison. I think we were all picking her for round 1 and round 2 finishes, and I suppose we just came to expect that, didn't we? You did go for a decision, Dan. Am I right in saying that? Sorry, I wasn't going to give you the glory for that one. That was a very, very good pick because me and John both seen a very, very dominant performance from Harrison and her getting the finish. I wasn't blown away, but you still have to look at it. She has come in her second UFC fight. She's beat Holly Holm and she's beat a number 2 ranked and a very good fighter in Caitlin Pereira. So I don't think we can get carried away. As much as it's easy to look at the price she was in the bookies and they look at the kind of pedigree that she comes with and say, right, that's her round 1, that's her round 2 KO. But we did kind of see a different side of her. What was your thoughts on that one, Dan? And how did you pick this? How did you know what was going to go to a decision?
Just an oracle. That's what it is. Just
Mystic Meg.
If you want to know the lottery numbers, then I've got them. Don't worry about that. But
send it my way. Come on.
Oh, don't worry, I will, John. With Harrison, I think it was more so. I was sort of I was impressed with Vieira. I think it was a test that I think a lot of bookmakers and fans were overlooking. Now, Caitlin Vieira, she's not a terrible fighter. Like I said, she's, I believe, 14-2 now, 14-3. I think she only lost to the very best. So I thought it would be definitely a step up. I believe the fight with Holly Holm was almost made for Harrison. Like I said, Holly Holm age, I think it was one of those where it was not necessarily a knockover for Harrison, but it was a big scalp moment for her. Vieira, I think, was a true test. Now, like I said, if she had taken her out in the first round, again, all credit to her, builds the star even more. I think, to be honest, I think a decision's quite good for her because the main question with her coming into the UFC was the weight. Can she consistently make 135, and how will she fare 12 minutes into a fight? How will she fare in that last when the going gets tough? And she got clipped in this fight in the second round. Like I said, the arguments that Vieira won it. I think it's definitely a good fight for Harrison to really build off of. Like I said, it wasn't that that viral moment, that submission in the first round, big knock, big take, TKO. But I think it's definitely a good win for Harrison. I think it lands her in good steady for that title shot that is inevitable for it. But no, I just felt like Vieira would be a bit more of a tough opposition. But yeah, no, I think that's the only really reason I went decision. I think it was more so I think Vieira would be a bit harder than some people gave it credit for.
It was a very, very good pick. Something that surprised me is not how difficult, because she did land a few takedowns, but I thought Kayla Harrison would just have her way. If she wanted a takedown, she could snap her fingers nearly and get it.
Mhm.
But it wasn't like that. She was kind of struggling to close the distance at times and was struggling to get the clinch. Once she did get Vera back up against the cage, it was inevitable, and it did happen multiple times. The takedown did come. There's a lot going on in this division at the moment, and for the first time in maybe a couple of years, we're starting to get a bit of excitement in it. John, what happens now? Do you see Nunes coming back? Do you think Pena should fight Kayla Harrison, or should she do the third fight with Nunes, or what's your thoughts? How's this division going to play out?
No question. It's clearly going to be Kayla Harrison. This is the point of having all 4 of these women on the same card. And it was for a belt and for the number 1 contender. I did doubt Vieira, so that was bad. That was my bad. I think I was questioning why she was ranked 2. So I didn't think if she won, she would get the belt, but Harrison won, luckily. And does a great point. We had 2 questions, was about her weight, and if her weight would affect going later into the later rounds, if she could survive. She did, and she hit a big shot with that elbow on her forehead, which is beautifully placed. But she got her takedowns in round 1, round 3. She deserved a title shot, I think, after this. I think she had a name outside the UFC, like Michael Chandler. Came into the UFC, got 2 wins, one finish, and a finish over a former champion, and then she got a decision win. I don't think it was a split decision, was it? It was a unanimous decision, right?
I think it was unanimous, yeah.
Yeah, unanimous decision win. So unanimous decision, you clearly beat number 2 ranked. I do like the call out for Pena. I think it's kind of smart. However, how you see it, she has technically won 1 against Nunes. She did finish Nunes, which Nunes doesn't have a win over her. A finish over her, I mean. And Harrison's in there, and the crowd obviously did the split screen to show Harrison, and she kind of dismissed her. So I could do like that. It's like, who do you think is a tougher fight, Nunes? Yeah. Who do you like? Who's a tougher fight? Do you think Nunes or Harrison? I think they're both tough fights, but I think Nunes will be the tougher fight. Especially,
I think so. I think Nunes, yeah, based on her accolades, Harrison, yes, she is a killer and she's very, very dangerous, but Nunes is the one looking at the history and the evidence of MMA, not looking at Olympic gold medals, but looking at MMA. Nunes is the one that's been there and done it. So I would say she is a tougher fight. I still love the way we mentioned it in the preview pod that Juliana Pena does not acknowledge the fact that Nunes beat the shit out of her for 5 rounds, because I listened to her after and she says, "Oh, I just ran out of time in that Nunes fight and I want to get that one back." Crazy. She just doesn't acknowledge
that 50-43 score card. That really does say you ran out of time. 10 more minutes would be 50-40. It's not something like you're going to be getting a win anytime soon. So
exactly. But based on that, I think Nunes is a harder fight, to be honest. But again, we're in a situation where we kind of said it about Pennington. We're just waiting on the next person getting the belt. We're waiting on the next person that getting the belt, and I think that will be Kayla Harrison. And the fight in the future that we're looking for is Harrison versus Nunes.
Yeah, that's. I think we all expect that fight to happen soon for the bantamweight championship, and then we expect probably Amanda to fight the winner of that fight, Harrison Pena. Give Nala, because that'll give the motivation for Nunes enough to come back. I'm still on the edge, 50-50. I don't know if she's actually going to come back or not. You retired on top, you regain your belt, you got your victory back. So I don't know if we'll see Amanda back, but it's give her the options. It's like, oh, you have Pena, who is a yapper like everybody says, and called you out, and says you're ducking her. Go back and prove it. Or you have Kayla Harrison, who's fresh meat, who has been dominating in the PFL, and you guys trained together, and that's why Amanda left AT&T to train not with Harrison. In case she comes to the UFC, she finally came to the UFC and she is the champion. Prove it's your belt and not Harrison's.
I don't think there's any need for her to come back for Pena. I think that first Pena fight, it was. I'm not going to call it lucky because Pena was on form on her night, but it wasn't very typical Amanda Nunes. And the second fight was, and that was decisive enough for me to know that Amanda Nunes is a better fighter than Pena. And for Nunes, she must be thinking that too. What's the point in coming back, risking it against someone like Pena? Let Kayla Harrison take her out the way. If Kayla Harrison loses to Pena, we've got a different situation. Pena is then put up on a different pedestal, and the third fight is even bigger with Nunes. But there's some interesting options there, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. For the first time, funny since Amanda Nunes retired, this division is a bit interesting. Moving on to the prelims, a very, very sad moment. Wonderboy Thompson gets knocked out by Joaquin Buckley. This was an interesting one because it was very, very tight in the first 2 rounds, and Wonderboy was doing well. And I think the judges' scorecards kind of confirms that as well, because one judge had it 2018 Buckley, one had it 2018 Wonderboy, and the other had it 19 all going into the third. So that just shows how close it was. Come into the third round, and it is hard seeing Wonderboy but finish the guy. We've only seen him been stopped twice against Anthony Pettis and against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Obviously, that was a submission. So seeing him knocked out cold like that, it was pretty tough. What was your thoughts on it, Dan?
Well, I watched it Sunday morning because I didn't stay up and watch it. So I stayed off Twitter and I was like, right, that's the one fight on the prelims where I went, I'll watch that. I'm watching it through and I'm thinking, Wonderboy's having far more success than I thought he would. I thought, like we said, I think he shot a takedown within the 30 seconds, which I expected from him, but he wasn't able to do with it, which I was quite pleasantly surprised by. Like I said, everyone wants to see striking, no one really wants to see grappling on this. But like I said, the Wonderboy was really. I thought he was. I definitely thought he won at least one of the rounds. I don't think 2018 Buckley's quite a fair first assessment on the first 2 rounds. No, going into that third, it just came out of nowhere. It was as if it was like just that one shot, and he absolutely coursed him so clean. And like I said, those 2 names are listed who've finished Wonderboy. Shavkat Rakhmonov and Anthony Pettis in his prime. That's a good trio of names to be in with. So I think Joaquin Buckley's done his career a world of good there. That's an excellent fight to really get a finish on. Like I said, if he had a decision with a bit in there, beating Thompson is biggest win of his career so far, excellent. But doing it in that fashion, getting that KO, I think that call out of Usman after is warranted. I think he's done the right thing there. If he finds out that decision, then you'd be like, oh, a bit of a stretch calling for Usman, but that KO finish is really, really put him on notice, I think. And I think that Usman fight is definitely ability for him now with that sort of viral knockout.
It was better than the Conor McGregor call out in his last fight, anyway, that's for sure.
Exactly.
John, John, how did you see this one? Did you think Wonderboy was winning getting into the third, or? I
was seeing it 1-1. I could see how it could be 2-0 for Wonderboy. That knockout came kind of out of nowhere. It's like Wonderboy kind of, I don't want to say gassed out, but used his, Buckley was not letting him set up his kicks, right? He didn't let him get into Wonderboy's range, and Buckley came with a good game plan, but he was getting cracked. And I said we're going to see a classic Wonderboy performance. We almost saw it. But Buckley, he's a train. He's a powerhouse. I had it 1-1. I did 1-1. So I was gonna be like, that was a deciding round, and Buckley took that out of our hands. Great performance by Buckley. Brandon, I don't know if you can confirm, is he undefeated at welterweight? All of his losses came at middleweight.
I will confirm while you're speaking.
Yeah, because if he is undefeated at welterweight, we have a stacked welterweight division. We have and that call out was amazing. I think that's the best call out. Obviously, way better than Conor, but that's a great call out. You are calling out a number 1 contender, who's a number 1 ranked welterweight, former champion Usman. That's perfect. Shavkat is having Shavkat's gonna probably most likely fight for the title shot. That will set you up to be the next contender. That'll get you in the conversation of the likes of JDM, like we spoke earlier, Ian Gary, Sean Brady, So it's gonna, if he's actually undefeated at welterweight,
He's got 2 losses in Bellator.
sorry,
He's had 2 losses at welterweight, but they were on Bellator. So
they're in when?
but Bellator, PFL Bellator.
Oh, he fought at Bellator. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we don't even count that. He's undefeated in UFC at welterweight, right? So I think that's crazy. I think that's really good. He takes Wonderboy's spot in the rankings, right? And then I think we're gonna see big fights from him soon. Bigger names than Thompson. Thompson's like a household name, and then he takes a spot at number 9, so he jumps up into the top 10. But then, I mean, even like a Jeff Neal would be an incredible fight. I think. I think just whatever Buckley did after his Chris Curtis fight, keep doing that, because he's just on such a roll now. He has the viral knockout in UFC. He has wins over Wonderboy. Now he has a win over a 6'7" Kazakhstanian dude from his last fight, or whatever he's from. He's on a roll. He called the shot beat and co-main in St. Louis. He has an amazing call out. He finished Wonderboy. Nobody, just two other people finished Wonderboy. If you think about Wonderboy career, and you'll think about, oh, he lost by finished 3 times. Buckley is one of the names you're mentioning. So he's on a crazy, crazy roll right now.
Do you think Usman is the next one for him, Dan, or do you think the UFC will swivel off and give him someone else?
I think the call out is excellent. Like we've all mentioned, I think it's perfect call out for him. What the UFC are doing at welterweight, I'm not sure. Why we've not seen a Shavkat Bilal announcement yet, I don't know. It's probably because they don't want it to headline a pay-per-view because it's Bilal Muhammad. But we'll move past that.
Yeah, but you know who can headline if they're the co-main? Alex Pereira in December at UFC 310.
You got a fair point then. Yeah. Well, I don't think Anchor Live's going to be there, so you're going to have to find someone else to step in.
Jamal Hill.
It'll be kept in the first round again. So, like you said, with welterweight, it's got to be Shavkat next. Then looking at Usman and Edwards sort of in the same position. Now, I don't think they'll match them 2 up again. But underneath them, you're looking at the likes of Ian Gary, that no one, people seem to forget about now, even though everyone was talking about him. Ian Gary, Sean Brady. Sean Brady's 17-1. Like, that's an excellent record. 15-0, Ian Gary. Like I said, and now you got Joaquin Buckley now jumping into the mix as well. I think it's an excellent position for him. And then, not to mention, you've got JDM. Jack Della Maddalena is, like you said, John, he's top 5 material. And I think he can stay there for a very long time. So those 4 names there, Buckley, JDM, Ian Gary, and Brady. Yeah?
Brady. Yeah.
Those 4.
Some good fights there. Some good fights for sure. I know you were sleeping during the rest of the prelims, Dan, and quite rightly so. And I was too. I literally woke up in front and just before the Wonderboy fight. Was there any other kind of key takeaway moments? The one that I watched some of the prelims back earlier. One of the maddest fights I've seen in a long time. Cesar Almeida taking on Potan. That was absolutely mental. I think there was like 4 eye pokes, and the referee didn't even take a point off Cesar Almeida. It was crazy one. Was there any standout moments for you, John, in the rest of the prelims?
No, I thought, Court McGee got it started off with a submission with the neck crank. I was like, okay, this might be good. And like, I heard a stat, Court McGee, I think he has 11 UFC fights and he only has 1 performance bonus. I don't even know if he got the performance bonus yesterday or Saturday because of that. Kind of sucks. Tisha Pennington got booed when she beat Carla because Carla was getting booed in her last fight and she's retiring. I guess it's nice they're showing the love that she's retiring, former 2-time strawweight champion. So that was fun. Ryan Spann did what he had to do, because if you lose to Ovince Peru when he's 74 years old, I think you should retire from MMA. And that's why Kennedy, I forgot his last name, the Nigerian who lost to him last time.
The Nigerian guy, yeah.
Yes. Move up to heavyweight. I think you have to lead the division if you cannot beat Ovince Peru. So smart move. Spann, he was kind of quiet. He lost to Smith twice now, so it was kind of odd for him. I do like he got a guillotine win so early, so quick. Now you're probably hoping to look back into the rankings. Yeah, that was weird by Cesar Almeida. It was like 17 eye pokes with both his eyes. I think if Eeyore had more eyes on him, I feel there'd be way more eye pokes. I think that was just what he was aiming for. And yeah, I think that's the standouts of my prelims. Also, Marina Rodriguez, big downfall for her. We were talking.
I think she was unlucky.
You think she was unlucky?
I think that last round. See, this was a point that I don't know if you saw it, but in the last round, there's a cut that opens up, I think, on her left eye. That's clearly from a head clash, and Mark Goddard announces it, and they're like, and then she goes on, in my opinion, to win the round. You still get people scoring it. Then for Lucinda, I'm thinking, did the judges even pick up on what Goddard was saying, or did they just see the cut and think, oh, that's a left hand, that's a right hand? Do you think they actually did pick up on it? Like I said, with judges, you never speak to a judge, so you can't hear their reasoning behind scores, which was something I'd love to see, but I don't think we'll ever see. It's like VAR in football. You're never going to get any explanation for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It depends how the judges see it. If that's the shitty part about it is we never know how they'll. Like, I wish even for the Bautista and Aldo fight, like, based off your criteria of judging, can you explain to me why you scored this fight for Bautista?
Exactly. Yeah.
But even if Rodriguez got unlucky, she's on a skid now. Well, she won in UFC 300 against Andrade, right?
Yeah.
Andrade is kind of in between her. She fights kind of like Kevin Holland, just anywhere, anytime. Mm-hmm. But she has a big skid. She is nowhere near the title when I thought she would be closer, or at least challenging for a title. Yeah. It just even though she lost the decision and got robbed, or it's still damaging for her. I feel like it's just a disappointment. I feel like you want to go in and win convincingly, like you did against like Amanda Ribas and people like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's a wrap then, lads. We'll finish it off there. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to tell your family and friends to tune in to the Combat Sports UK podcast. Me and the lads will be live every Monday/Tuesday. The episodes will be going live. We'll be breaking down cards. We'll be talking about the latest CrossFit ban news, having some good debates about the combat sports world. Also, make sure and like the Combat Sports UK page on all social medias. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So we're all over the show. Go and like them all, and we will keep you up to date with the latest combat sports news. Dan, John, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Dan, I'm waiting for those lottery ticket numbers, So
don't worry, they'll be sent across after this, don't worry.
Just send them in their group chat so I can get them to you. It'll be first one on.
Oh, no worries. I've got the bonus pool as well. Don't worry. That's coming as well.
Let's go.
You can pick my parlay for me next weekend too, if that's okay.
Don't do that now, because I'm going to get absolutely hammered next week, I know.
Cheers, lads. All the best. Thank you.
Cheers.